Hey guys, today I want to share with you 5 common decluttering challenges as well as how to overcome them. And in the process of decluttering and minimizing our lives, oftentimes there are different roadblocks or challenges that we'll encounter where we're kind of wanting to hold on to something when maybe we know that we need to let it go. So today I want to talk through what are some of those roadblocks, what are some of those challenges, and how can we work through the hang-ups that we have so that we can move on from those items and let go of them. So I'm really excited to dive into each one of these challenges with you, but before we get started, if we don't know each other yet, hi, my name is Ashlynne, and I make videos every week on this channel about minimalism, decluttering, and intentional living. So if that sounds interesting to you, be sure to hit that subscribe button below. But let's get into this. So let's get started with the first common roadblock, and that's to feel guilt over decluttering something that was a gift. Oftentimes we feel an obligation to keep basically anything that was given to us. And I think that what's often at the heart of this challenge is that we feel like in decluttering an item that was given to us, we're somehow diminishing from the intent of the gift itself. But here's the thing, people give gifts to bring joy and to express love and appreciation. But if an item is sitting around collecting dust, if it's going unused, or if it's unwanted, that gift is actually having the opposite effect of that which the giver intended. So we need to stop seeing getting rid of unwanted gifts as something to feel guilty about. We can still appreciate the intent of the gift, the expression of love and affection, without holding on to the physical item. Once the gift has passed from the giver to the recipient, it's up to you to decide what to do with it. And so the way I see it is if a gift isn't being used by you, it isn't actually fulfilling its highest possible value. And so the best thing that you can actually do to fulfill the intent of the giver is to appreciate the gift, but then pass it on to someone who can love and appreciate the physical item itself and actually use it, rather than it collecting dust on the shelf somewhere for you. This second roadblock is a challenge that I'm sure that all of us have faced at one point or another, and that's the phrase, I have so many memories with this item. And items that you once loved, or maybe that helped define a particular period in your life, are some of the most difficult ones to let go of. These sentimental items might have some great memories attached to them. But the problem is the value that our possessions provide to us isn't static. It changes over time. And so it's important that we learn when something isn't providing value to us anymore and when it's time to let go. I think when we're trying to identify when it's time to move on from something, it's really helpful to ask, is this still serving me? And if it's not, it's really important that we recognize that our memories aren't in that physical thing, they're inside of us. So you can let go of something that you might have a good memory associated with without losing that memory. And I think that recognition in itself is really powerful because it gives us the freedom to move on. We can retain that memory without having to hold on to the thing that's causing clutter. So learn to appreciate the fact that those memories are inside of you, thank the item for how it served you for all of these years, and then gently let it go. And I fully realize that this is the biggest challenge for most people in decluttering. So a few extra tips I have on letting go of sentimental items are try taking a picture of it so that you can look back on that picture whenever you want. Often the sentimental items we have are a trigger of a memory for us. And so by taking a picture of that item, you can still preserve that trigger. You can go back and look at it so that you can remember whatever that specific memory is that you associate it with that item. By taking a picture, you can go back and look at that whenever you want without having to hold on to the physical item. Another idea is if something isn't serving you in its current form, think about if there might be a way of being able to repurpose that item so that it can begin to once again serve a practical purpose for you and add value in that way. If it's something that's meaningful to you but that you're no longer using, see if you can gift it to somebody who's actually going to love and use it. That way that item you know is going to a good home. That can make the letting go process a little bit easier. And then finally, if you're really struggling to declutter your sentimental items, try defining a sentimental items box, which is a small defined space that you can use to hold those items that truly have the best memories associated with them. Especially if you are a more sentimental person and like looking back on some of those memories, this can be a really helpful way of going about decluttering sentimental items in a way that allows you to get rid of a lot of the clutter while keeping what's really important to you. Moving on, roadblock number 3 is decluttering expensive items. And oftentimes, the more we pay for something, the harder it is to let go of it. If you've ever found yourself making the excuse, but I paid so much for it, when looking at decluttering an item, first off, know that you're not alone. Second though, know that that money you spent is already that. It's spent. It's not going to be able to come back to you just by you holding on to that item longer than you should. In the business world, there's this concept called the sunk cost fallacy, where essentially people will continue pouring money and time and energy into something that they know is failing because of how much they've already invested in it. And we tend to do the exact same thing with our physical possessions. The more we spent on something, the longer we'll tend to hold on to it, the more space we'll allow it to take up in our houses, even when it's not actually being used by us or serving us. And so with expensive items, it is so important that we realize that money we spent on it isn't coming back, and holding on to that item longer isn't going to make it a better purchasing decision. And what you'll actually find is that in decluttering some of these more expensive items, you're actually going to feel a huge sense of relief, because in saying goodbye to that expensive mistake, you're actually letting go of the guilt, the anxiety, and the stress that that item was causing you. So let go of that expensive item that you've been holding on to for maybe a little bit too long. Learn the lesson so that you're not making the same costly mistake again, and then just forgive yourself and move on. This fourth decluttering roadblock is definitely one that poses a greater challenge for some than others, and it's not wanting to declutter because it feels wasteful. And I get it, we want to be good stewards of the possessions we own and the things that we have, but the fact of the matter is, if something isn't being used by you, it's not providing you with value. So for this one, what I'd recommend is, instead of using not wanting to create waste as an excuse not to declutter, instead use it as a motivation to practice what I'll call responsible decluttering. Essentially, if something isn't being used in your home, it's wasting away in your space. So instead, what we want to do is allow the items that we're letting go of to go and fulfill the practical purpose that they were designed for. And this type of decluttering might be a little bit more time intensive, because instead of just donating everything to your local thrift store, I want you to go through and individually ask yourself, okay, can these old sheets maybe go to a local animal shelter? Can this plant that's dying in my care go to a friend who can love and nurse it back to health? Can this clothing I have go to a local women's shelter? I want you to be creative with asking yourself, okay, how can I let go of things in a way that allows them to actually be used, loved, and add value to the lives of others? By using this mindset and taking time to make sure that the items that you own are going to good homes that can love and cherish those items, you're actually taking the waste completely out of the equation when it comes to decluttering, and actually add value to the world as a result, because you're connecting your resources and your possessions with the places and people who actually need and can use them. So if decluttering is something that you've thought of as being wasteful in the past, my encouragement to you is to use it as motivation to practice responsible decluttering. And the final decluttering challenge that I see people encountering all the time is to use the excuse of someday. And often we have the best intention of using the things that we own, but sometimes it's important that we're honest with ourselves and realize that someday often never actually comes. So if you find yourself using this excuse of someday, and if this is a challenge you often find yourself encountering, it's important that you are tough with yourself, that you're really honest in answering a few key questions. First off, have you ever actually used it? Second off, when was the last time you used it? And finally, will you ever use it, or will you ever use it again? Sometimes we like the idea of doing something more than we actually like the thing itself. And so this one really requires that you dig deep internally and honestly answer these questions. And I think if we're really honest with ourselves, we can probably let go of most of the things that we're saying we'll use someday. But if there are a few things that you really believe that you are going to use, my encouragement to you is to say, okay, yes, I can keep it, but I'm going to set a deadline for when I want to have used this thing by. Remember that when we're talking about decluttering, it's important that we're not only loving the idea of something, but actually physically using that possession. And so if you're not actively using something or you're not using it enough to justify it, we need to think twice about those items and consider letting them go. Okay guys, well those are 5 common decluttering challenges as well as how to overcome them. And these are all challenges and roadblocks that at some point I've encountered, and I'm sure that you probably have as well. My encouragement to you is as you encounter these roadblocks, really dig deep, power through them. No, it's not easy decluttering some of the items in the categories that we've talked about today, but honestly, when you are willing to let go of them, you'll find a lot of freedom and peace on the other side. Oftentimes, these things that we've been feeling guilt over holding on to, we don't actually realize what a stress reliever that is when we actually are willing to let go of them. So give yourself grace, take your time, work through these challenges. I know you've got this. Thank you guys so much for watching though. Let me know in the comments, what was the hardest thing that you've ever had to declutter? And how did you finally find the motivation to declutter that item? I'd love to hear that, so let me know in the comments below. And also, if you guys enjoyed this video and want to see more like it, be sure to hit that subscribe button for more minimalism, decluttering, and intentional living inspiration coming at you twice a week. That's it for today's video though. Give it a like if you enjoyed it. I love you all so much though, and I'll see you in the next one.